Hello and welcome back to another video on SW Fight Hub. We're on UFC 303 preview for this show. It's happening tomorrow night in Las Vegas as part of International Fight Week. Obviously, it's meant to be Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler is the one we're all looking forward to. But unfortunately, McGregor has injured his toe. But like the UFC always do, they find a way and they put together a quite amazing card on short notice. A few of the fights have stayed. The co-main events we'll touch on later has been one of the most cursed fights in UFC history. But we are here now, and it's going to be headlined by Alex Pereira defending his light heavyweight championship against Jiri Prochazka in a rematch. Some other good fights in the main card as well, which is what we're going to be touching on here. We saw the press conference last night. Ian Garry and Michael Venom Page pretty much carried that one. Interested to see what happens in that fight. MVP coming over to the UFC from Bellator, won his first fight against Kevin Holland. It wasn't a dominant performance, but he did enough to kind of outscore Holland in that one. Ian Garry's undefeated. He's on the tear. He's been fighting good, solid competition in the UFC, so he has that advantage over MVP in this one. I just hope it turns into a good fight. I think with two strikers, we've seen it a million times before. The best example for me of it was Till against Wonderboy. Can just be a stalemate sometimes. The filling out process lasts quite a while, and we don't get the great matchup that we think because there's not going to be much wrestling or jiu-jitsu involved in it. But MVP with his karate style on his toes and all the rest of it, sometimes it can make for stalemates. But I'm hoping somebody potentially gets hurt early on in the fight, or there's some good action early on, so we can get a bit of a war breaking out between MVP and Ian Garry. High stakes in that one, like the UFC's play on using it to open up the main card. I think that's going to be a good fight. Hopefully, we just don't get the stalemate. So moving on from Ian Garry and Michael Venom Page, the light heavyweight fight we will touch on next. Probably the most cursed fight in UFC history. Let's just have it right. It was meant to be Jamal Hill against Carlos Ulberg. Then it was Jamal Hill got injured. Carlos Ulberg was then due to fight Anthony Smith. And then Ulberg got injured. And now it's Roman Dolidze's come and answered the call. So he's been fighting middleweights. He's moving up. But luckily, we get the fight. Unfortunately, it's not the fight we wanted to see. Ulberg against Jamal Hill would have been phenomenal. But credit to Anthony Smith as always. He's always willing to put his name in the hat. Love watching Smith fight. He's on a decent run himself as well. It should be a good fight. It's interesting to see how Dolidze looks at 205 this Saturday night. Love this fight next. I believe it's going to be the co-main event. It's Brian Ortega against Diego Lopez. We saw Diego Lopez look amazing, getting rid of Sadiq Youssef. Brian Ortega in his own right is coming off a fantastic victory. Submitted Yair Rodriguez. High stakes really at featherweight. You have Topuria, which is probably going to be Max Holloway, isn't it? I think they're talking about either Utah or the Sphere. But that looks likely the direction that the UFC are going to go for this one. So, you have to say the winner of Lopez and Brian Ortega is right there for a title shot, 145 pounds. So, very, very interesting matchup. A bit of a crossroads one almost. Lopez it's been a bit of a tear. Ortega hasn't been the most active featherweight of all time. So, good to see him getting two fights in the space of 4 or 5 months. Very, very interested to see what happens in that fight as the co-main event. Moving on to the main event, what a fight this is going to be. Rematch of Alex Pereira stopping Jiri Prochazka in November at Madison Square Garden. A lot of people, myself included, thought it was a little bit early. I know Jiri said he was out after it in the end, but then I since think he's reversed his statement. I'm looking forward to this. I believe Jiri Prochazka beats Alex Pereira on Saturday. I think all the timing's better for him. Pereira's been struggling with injuries. He's been out on a tour in Australia. I think if there is a time to be beating Alex Pereira, I think it's now. I think Jiri, was coming off the injury and everything like that previously. He's had the rounds with Alexander Rakic in an unbelievable fight in UFC 300. It's hard to go against Poatan. He's been in unbelievable form. He's stopping everyone in their tracks at 205 pounds. The fights he's had, Blachowicz, Prohaska, and Jamal Hill. What a run he's on at 205 pounds. And if he wins against Yuri this Saturday, who are we to stop him from calling out the likes of Tom Aspinall and John Jones? He has the opportunity to be the first ever 3-weight UFC champion. It's a big ask, and whether he does it or not be another question. But he's well within his right to be calling for that shot if he beats Yuri Prohaska. He's on his way to lapping the 205-pound division. His activity is something to commend. Defending your belt when you're half injured and in Australia on a PR tour, has to be commended. The guy is just an absolute stud. His activity levels, his answers always yes when the UFC call. It must be a dream to work with. But I just think it's Yuri's time now. I think if you're going to get Alex Pereira and you're going to beat him at UFC 303, this is the time to get Alex Pereira. So yeah, cannot wait for 303. Please subscribe to the channel, guys. Really appreciate you watching this. For me, fight of the night, I think, is going to be the co-main event. I think we're just going to get chaos in Ortega and Lopez. I really do. But yeah, I think we could get some shocks, and I think there's going to be some crazy fights. I know there's 2 fight of the night bonuses Dana agreed to at the press conference last night. So UFC 303 is going to be absolutely off the chain. Credit to the UFC for putting this card together on such short notice as well. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you next time.